can stay in your place," my mother said, like she was suggesting I lend my sister a sweater. "You're barely there anyway." I had been back in Calgary for less than 40 minutes. My flight from Vancouver landed at 2. I picked up my car from long-term parking, stopped at a Tim Hortons drive-thru because I hadn't eaten since 6 in the morning, and now I was sitting in my own driveway with a medium double-double going cold in the cup holder, staring at a light on in my living room that I definitely had not left on. My mother was standing on my front step with her arms crossed, not apologetic, not embarrassed, just waiting for me to be reasonable about it. My brother's wife, Carla, had been evicted from her rental in Airdrie 3 days ago. I didn't know that. Nobody called me. Nobody texted. My mother simply used the spare key I gave her for actual emergencies, burst pipe power outage, the kind of emergency that involves water or fire, and let herself in while I was presenting at a conference in Vancouver, and she moved Carla and my brother and their 2 kids, a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old, into my house. Into my house that I bought 14 months ago and have been paying a mortgage on alone, because that is what I do. I work hard and I pay my bills and I have a spare room, and apparently that makes me a resource, not a person. I got out of the car. My legs felt strange. Not weak, exactly. More like they were moving without me. "Open the door, Mom." She tilted her head, kept her arms crossed. She said, "Your brother needs stability right now. The kids need a routine. You have 3 bedrooms, and it's just you. Don't be selfish, sweetheart." Selfish. My mother has called me selfish every single time I have ever said no to anything. I said no to lending my brother $2,000 4 years ago, and I was selfish. I said no to skipping a work trip to help Carla move into that Airdrie apartment, and I was selfish. And now I was standing in my driveway being told that not wanting 4 people living in my house without my knowledge or consent was also, somehow, selfishness. "I need you to open the door," I said again. She sighed like I was being dramatic and turned around and pushed it open. The smell hit me immediately. Someone had cooked something with a lot of garlic, and there were shoes. A row of shoes, a low kids and little kid shoes, lined up along my entryway like they had always lived there, a backpack hanging on my coat hook. A child's drawing taped to my hallway wall, with what I hoped was painter's tape and was clearly not. My brother was in my kitchen. He was standing at my counter, eating cereal out of my bowls with my spoons, wearing a shirt I recognized from a family Christmas photo from 3 years ago. He looked up. "Hey," he said. He did not look guilty. He looked relieved, like I was a problem that had already been solved. "What is going on?" I said. "The landlord was a piece of work," he said. "Gave him basically no notice. I told you Carla's been having a rough go. They had nowhere. You didn't call me." He shrugged. "Mom said it would be fine." My mother appeared behind me. She patted my arm. "It's just for a little while, until they get sorted. You know how hard the rental market is right now. You're not going to put babies on the street, are you?" There it was, that word, babies, as a weapon, as if pointing out that my brother and his wife are adults capable of finding their own housing solutions, somehow endangered their children. The 4-year-old came running around the corner in socks and crashed into the back of my mother's legs. My mother scooped her up and held her toward me like a prop. "Say hi to Auntie," she said. I looked at my brother. "Where are you planning to sleep?" He nodded toward the hallway, the guest room. We set up the air mattress in there too for the kids. My guest room, which doubles as my office, which has my work monitors and my filing cabinet and 3 years of freelance contracts organized in color-coded folders in it. "I need to think," I said. "Of course," my mother said. "Take your time." She said in the tone of someone who was certain I would come around. She said it like the outcome was already decided and we were just waiting for me to catch up. I went back outside. I sat in my car. I did not cry. I want to be clear about that because I know what this sounds like from the outside. Woman cries in car. Caves to family pressure. Story ends there. That is not what happened. I sat in my car and I thought. I am a contracts administrator. I have spent 8 years reviewing agreements, flagging ambiguous language, finding the clause that saves the project or sinks it. I know exactly what words do when they are written down and signed. I know what permission means legally and what temporary guest means legally, and I know the difference between someone who has tenant rights and someone who does not. My brother had been in my house for 3 days. In Alberta, the Residential Tenancies Act is very specific. A tenancy is established through a written or verbal agreement, exchange of rent, and the reasonable expectation of continued occupation. 3 days with no rent paid, no agreement signed, no lease. He was a guest. He had no tenant rights yet. If I waited, that would change. If I waited until rent was mentioned, until any money changed hands, until they enrolled the kids in a local school. A school registration creates a paper trail that courts treat as evidence of established residence. I could find myself fighting an informal tenancy dispute at the Residential Tenancy Dispute Resolution Service with a wait time of weeks. I had a window, and it was closing. I got out of my car and walked back inside. "Okay," I said. "I think I've been reacting emotionally, and that's not fair to anyone." My mother looked like she had won the lottery. "See," she said, turning to my brother. "I told you she'd come around." "But I need this to be done properly," I said. "I work from home, I have client data in the office, and my home insurance policy requires me to declare any occupants. I have to protect myself legally. You understand that?" My brother nodded slowly. He understood the word legally in the same way most people do, as something annoying and bureaucratic that must be acknowledged, even if you don't fully track what it means. "I have a standard occupancy agreement I use when people stay here," I said. "It covers liability. It takes 5 minutes." My mother was already nodding. "That sounds very organized." I pulled out my laptop. I made myself a tea. I stood at my kitchen island, now covered in a child's coloring books and a box of goldfish crackers. And I started typing. I was not writing an occupancy agreement in the way they were imagining. I was not writing anything that would give my brother a foothold. Under the Residential Tenancies Act, a license to occupy is not a tenancy. A license is a personal, revocable permission to use a space. It does not confer possession. It does not confer possession. It does not grant the right to exclusive occupation. If the license is conditional on something like, say, being a guest in good standing, then the moment the condition is breached, the license ends, not in 30 days, not after a dispute resolution process. Immediately. I built the document carefully. I wrote it to look like what my mother expected. Something administrative, something boring, something you sign and don't think about again. Clause 2. The occupants. Acknowledge that this agreement constitutes a revocable license to occupy, not a tenancy agreement, and does not create any landlord-tenant relationship under the Residential Tenancies Act of Alberta. I buried it in the middle, between the section about utility usage and the section about noise after 10 p.m. Clause 5. The license may be revoked immediately and without notice in the event of any of the following: damage to the property, unauthorized changes to the property or its fixtures, smoking inside the premises, use of the property or its fixtures, smoking inside the premises, use of the property for any purpose other than personal residential accommodation, or breach of any term of this agreement. Clause 7. The occupants consent to the use of security cameras in all common areas of the property for the purposes of property protection. Footage may be retained for up to 30 days. Clause 9. The occupants acknowledge that no financial consideration has been exchanged and that no ongoing expectation of accommodation beyond the term of this license exists. The term of this license is month to month and may be terminated by the licensor at any time with 24 hours written notice delivered by email or text message. 24 hours. Not the 3 months a formal tenant might be entitled to. 24 hours. I printed it. My brother scanned it the way people scan things they have already decided to sign. He was looking for dollar amounts and his own name. He found neither alarming. "Do I need a lawyer for this?" he said. I kept my expression neutral. "It's a standard house sharing agreement," I said. "I have a template. But if you want a few days to look it over, I totally understand. I just need it signed before I can add you to my insurance." He looked at Carla. She shrugged. She was more interested in getting the kids settled than in reading fine print. He signed. Carla signed. I signed. I took photos of every page on my phone before I even put the document back in the folder. The next morning, I left for a coffee shop to work because I could not concentrate with a 4-year-old asking me questions about my monitors every 20 minutes. And I set up the security cameras I had ordered 6 months ago and never installed because I kept forgetting to. They fed to an app on my phone. I mounted 2, one in the kitchen, one in the living room, while my brother was taking the kids to a park. They were well within the common areas specified in Clause 7. Carla watched me install them. She didn't say anything. By the third day, I had footage of my brother smoking in the backyard and then propping the back door open, which sent smoke directly into the kitchen. Clause 5. I had footage of him prying the towel bar off the main bathroom wall because, he later told me, it was wobbly. Unauthorized changes to the property. Clause 5 again. I did not say anything. I just watched. On day 5, I came home to find that he had given my neighbor, a retired guy named Barry, who has been next door for 20 years and has always been very kind to me, some kind of story about being the new primary resident, and had asked Barry to redirect any packages to him instead of to me, because I wasn't around much. Barry, confused, told me this himself when I was getting my mail. I sat down that night and I opened my laptop and I started drafting. I want to explain something first, because I think it matters for understanding what happened next. I am not a vindictive person. I am not someone who enjoys conflict. I spent most of my childhood being the easy one, the reasonable one, the one who could be counted on to absorb whatever the family needed absorbed, because she was capable and she would manage. I got used to being managed, not celebrated. I got used to my competence being treated as surplus inventory, something to be drawn down in a crisis and restocked quietly when no one was watching. My brother is not a bad person in the way villains are bad. He doesn't plot. He doesn't scheme. He just drifts. He drifts toward the path of least resistance, which has, for his entire adult life, run directly through other people's goodwill. He married Carla, who drifts the same way. Together, they generate a kind of passive dependency that is very hard to argue against, because it never looks like a choice. It always looks like a choice. It always looks like circumstance. Always bad luck. Always a rough patch, always almost sorted. My mother is the engine of all of it. She sees my stability as a renewable resource. She genuinely does not understand why that framing would hurt me. She thinks she is protecting her family. She thinks allocating my assets to shore up my brother's life is good family management. She has never once asked herself what it costs me to be the one who is allocated. I understood all of that. I had understood it for years. Understanding it did not mean I was going to keep paying for it. I sent the email at 8:47 in the morning. I had written and rewritten it 4 times. The final version was 2 paragraphs. The first paragraph cited Clause 5 of the occupancy agreement, listed the documented breaches, smoking with the door open on 4 separate occasions, removal of the towel bar without permission, the incident with Barry in the mail, and stated that pursuant to the terms of the agreement, the license to occupy was hereby revoked. The second paragraph stated that per Clause 9, 24 hours written notice was being provided, and that I expected the property to be vacated by 9 a.m. the following morning. I noted that I would be contacting the Calgary Police Service to perform a wellness check at 10 a.m. if the property had not been cleared, and that any belongings remaining after that time would be stored for 30 days before disposal as permitted under Alberta law. I ceded my mother. I wanted her to see it at the same time he did. My phone started ringing 11 minutes later. I did not answer. I let it ring. I watched the security app. My brother was standing in the kitchen reading his phone. Carla came in. He showed her the screen. She sat down on one of my kitchen chairs and put her head in her hands. My mother called 9 times. She texted. She sent a voice memo that was 4 minutes long and which I did not listen to until much later, and which was essentially a recording of her telling me I had broken the family. I had always been cold. I had never once put anyone before myself, and that she hoped I was proud of what I had done. My brother called twice. On the second call, I picked up. "You can't do this," he said. "We have nowhere to go." "I know this feels sudden," I said. "But you've been here nearly a week, and there has been no conversation about a plan. No discussion about timelines, and multiple breaches of the agreement you signed. I need my home back." That agreement was a trap. It was a document. You read it and signed it. We didn't have a lawyer. I offered you time to review it. He was quiet for a moment. Then, "Mom is losing her mind." "I know. She keeps saying you owe us." "I've been thinking about that," I said, "and I think she has it backwards. I don't owe you anything I haven't already given. I have been generous with both of you for years. I'm done subsidizing decisions I wasn't part of making." He hung up. I went back to my coffee. My hands were completely steady. That surprised me. I had been so sure this part would wreck me. It didn't. By noon, I could see on the camera that they were packing. Slowly, resentfully, with a lot of stopping to sit on my couch and look at their phones. But packing. Carla was putting the kids' things in garbage bags. My brother was dragging the air mattress out of my office in a way that I could tell was intended to make a point about how put upon he was. I drove home at 4 to help them load the car. Not because I felt guilty, because there were 2 kids involved and I am not someone who takes out adult conflicts on children. I carried boxes. I helped fold the air mattress. I got the 7-year-old a juice box from my fridge and I did not say anything about the drawings on my hallway wall. My brother didn't speak to me the whole time. My mother had apparently told him not to, a strategy she had used to punish me before. Silence as consequence. It used to work. I used to chase the silence, fill it with apologies, try to reconstruct whatever I had broken. I did not chase it this time. They loaded the last bag at 6:15. My brother strapped the kids into the car. Carla looked at me once before she got in. I expected anger. What I got was something more complicated. Something that looked almost like recognition. Like she understood something she hadn't expected to understand. She didn't say anything. She got in the car. My mother pulled up as they were backing out of the driveway because of course she did. She stood in the street with her hands clasped and she watched them go and then she turned to me and she said, "I hope this was worth it." I didn't answer. There wasn't anything to say that she would have been able to hear. She drove away a few minutes later. I stood in my driveway for a little while after that, just letting the quiet settle. The neighbor's dog was barking somewhere up the street. A Canada Post truck went by. It was an ordinary Tuesday evening, and I was standing in front of my own house, and it was mine. I went inside. I took the drawing off the hallway wall. It came off cleanly. It was painter's tape after all, and I put it in a kitchen drawer in case one of the kids wanted it someday. I reordered the towel bar from the same hardware store I had bought it at originally. I opened all the windows to get the smell of garlic and someone else's life out of the rooms. I changed the security codes on the smart lock. I reset the spare key protocol. I sent my mother a short text that said, "I love you. I am not available to be a resource anymore. When you want to talk to me like a daughter, I'm here." She hasn't responded yet. That's okay. I'm not chasing that silence either. Here's what I know now, that I did not fully know before. There is a difference between being loving and being exploitable. I spent a very long time believing those things were connected, that the proof of my love was my willingness to be used up. I was wrong. Love does not require you to disappear into other people's crises. It does not require you to fund chaos with your stability. You can love someone completely and still refuse to be their fallback plan. I am 31 years old. I bought this house with 11 years of careful saving and every work trip and late deadline and skipped vacation that went into getting good enough at my job to afford it. I did not buy it as a communal resource. I bought it as a home. Mine. And tonight, for the first time in 8 days, every room in it belongs to me. I keep coming back to the moment I sat in my car in my own driveway, double going cold, watching a light on in a window I had paid for. There was no dramatic music. No clear sign of what to do next. Just me, alone, trying to figure out whether I was going to let this be the story of my life. The capable one. The dependable one. The one whose stability was everybody else's insurance policy. What happened next wasn't really about the legal document, though the document mattered. It was about a choice I had been avoiding for years. The choice to treat my own life as something worth protecting. My brother didn't end up in my house because he is cruel. He ended up there because he learned, very young, that if he waited long enough, someone would solve things for him. My mother taught him that without meaning to, she solved and arranged and cushioned every hard edge until he stopped believing hard edges were real. And I participated in that. Every time I absorbed the cost of his choices quietly and without complaint, because making noise felt selfish, because being the strong one meant not needing anything back. That is not strength. I understand that now. What I had been calling strength was actually a very slow form of self-erasure. The thing about integrity, about actually living according to your values rather than just performing them, is that it requires you to apply those values to yourself, too. I believed in honesty. I believed people should own the consequences of their choices. I believed in fairness. And then I let myself be treated unfairly, over and over in the name of keeping the peace. That is not integrity. That is a contradiction I had been living inside for so long I stopped noticing it. Writing that occupancy agreement was the first genuinely honest thing I had done in my family in years. Not because it was a trap, it was honest precisely because it was clear. It said, these are the rules, these are the consequences. I mean what I say. That is all honesty is, meaning what you say and following through. The part that took real courage was the email. Sending it knowing my mother would call 9 times, knowing my brother would say I owed him something, knowing the silence would come. I sat with my hands on the keyboard for a long time before I hit send. Not because I doubted the decision. I had stopped doubting it somewhere around day 4, watching him smoke with my back door propped open, but because I knew what it would cost, socially, emotionally, in the short term. I sent it anyway. That is what I would call perseverance, though not the dramatic kind, not pushing through fear in a single heroic moment. The quieter kind, deciding that your own well-being is worth the discomfort of standing behind a decision that other people don't like. Carla looked at me before she got in the car. I've thought about that look a lot. I think she recognized something. I think some part of her knew that what I had done was not cruelty dressed up as paperwork. It was just a person, finally, refusing to disappear. My mother's text is still unanswered. The towel bar has been replaced. The windows are open. I don't need anyone to validate the choice I made. The quiet in these rooms does that every morning.